And now moving on to the disassembly of the gearbox. In order to disassemble the gearbox, we're going to start by removing, actually no, we're not going to start by removing all the screws, we're going to start by removing the spring to make the gearbox safe. But even before removing the spring, I want you to always detension the gearbox itself. For this, using a flathead or any kind of prying tool like that, on this side, just stick it in there and basically pry away the anti-reverse latch. And you will hear that the gearbox will completely detension, as you heard right there. So I just sticked it inside and pulled towards me. Now that the gearbox is completely detention, we can actually remove the spring. So we can do this by hand. I just press in and rotate. The spring guide now actually indicates on it if it's locked or unlocked. So this is in the normal orientation. When you look at it like so, when it's unlocked, it's going to go out. And now we can actually proceed with removing the screws. So for this, a 2.5 hex tool, a 2mm hex tool. These three screws are exactly the same length, but be mindful that the last one, the forwardmost one, is slightly longer. And this also has the screw glue on it, so it can get a little sticky. That's the purpose. That is a sticky glue which will never harden or never lose its stickiness, which is meant to actually prevent the screws from completely unscrewing themselves because of normal vibrations. It's the same story for the next lower down screw. This also has screw glue on it. So we put it aside, make sure we don't get the sticky stuff on our fingers, and then continue with the rest. All of the bottom screws which you see here are exactly the same length. So other than the screw glue, there is no difference between them. At this point, you should also not be worried about anything like popping off or like jumping in your face or anything like that. Like all the major springs from the inside are now completely detention, so it should not happen at all. So from here, very confidently, you can actually wiggle it slightly and then basically pull it open. I'm gonna put this top part on the side for now and just focus on the inside. The only other spring that is tensioned inside currently is the tappet plate spring, which we can simply remove by inserting something underneath it and just popping it open. From here, I can take off the entire cylinder group and put it aside. I can also remove the trigger from this point. It should go fairly easy out. And on this one, the spring will not actually pop out on its own. You actually need to fight a little bit with the spring to get it off. So that's a good thing because it doesn't get misplaced. It's easy to reassemble. It's not going to make it any more difficult. Then removing the gears themselves. Before I actually put the gear on the side, I always like to reinstall the shims on the individual gears. This is to ensure that you're not going to misplace the shims because they are specific shims for specific gears. So top part will be a certain kind of shim, the bottom part will be a certain kind of shim. So for this, just going to remove the anti-reverse and then grab it with, if you can grab it with the finger, then just like use a small tool so that it gets, the grease will hold it in place, but once you move it, it should go fairly easy. And then reinstall this on the bottom, and I take it from the top gearbox port as well. I take that one, put it on the top, and then set this aside. I'm going to do the same now for the sector gear. I'm going to get the top ones, put it on top, make sure the bottom ones is there, it's not on the gearbox, and the same for the spur gear. This will get a bit messy, make sure to have a paper towel or something next to you to clean your fingers after that. Now that all the shims are there, I can safely put the gears away and rest assured that it's not going to be a problem upon reassembly. To continue, we take off the screw that secures the ETU in place, and for this we need a Phillips head bit. And there is just this central screw which needs to be removed, but be mindful there is a transparent spacer, plastic spacer, which ensures there is no direct metallic contact and short on the ETU itself. Okay. Now with the ETU removed, just pry it out basically. You will notice on this one there is actually no additional safety or anything. This gun has a fully electronic safety. So the only other component that's left on the gearbox is the plate itself, which can be removed freely even when the E2 is inside. I mentioned before there is a little tidbit on this gearbox which will prevent the pinion gear to actually get stuck. You can best see it here. There is a bit of a chamfered edge right here which totally prevents the pinion to actually get stuck upon removal. Good, now that we have the entire gearbox disassembled, the only other thing that remains is to show you the individual components on the cylinder set, which is the tappet plate, the nozzle, the piston itself, the cylinder, and the cylinder head. The cylinder head might be in there like quite tight, so for example now I can't actually remove it with my fingers. So in order to do this, you just use your piston by grabbing the cylinder itself and just press down lightly until the cylinder head is removed. From here you should be good to go. If you for whatever reason want to remove the piston head, there is a Phillips head screw inside, but be mindful there is actual screw glue on this one, so this needs to be heated properly before removing completely. However, you should not need to do this necessarily if you need to replace the piston. We offer this piston, as you can see right here, completely assembled to this degree. And this basically concludes the disassembly of the SSR4 Mark II gearbox. So now we're going to move on to reassembling.